Hello everyone, you're welcome once again to Young Investors Network series on financial literacy, and today we are concluding our analysis on GOIL and TOTAL by comparing their financials. We are comparing the figures from 2014 through to 2018. We have already taken you through a lot of analysis ratios for each and every company that we are looking at. That is a GOIL and TOTAL. Now we are going to look at the two companies in comparison. How have they fared to their shareholders? Sit back, relax and enjoy. So we start with the net revenue. We look at the cost of sales, expenses, EAT, and then other ratios. So starting with the net revenue, we select our net revenue for GOIL, then our net revenue for Total Ghana. So net revenues, so there we have it. Okay, so let's showcase our data charts and then labels and rename it. So we have series 1 to be the net revenue, and then series 2 to be the net revenue for Total. Okay, so let's rename it as trend of revenue in Ghana cedis. Okay, so let's see how the two companies fared. So let's create a new sheet and then alright, so there we have it. Let's change the design. Great. So this has been the revenue trend for 2014 through to 2018. So we can see that in 2014, Total Ghana had the highest revenue, or they outperformed GOIL in terms of revenue generation, with GOIL having 1.5 billion Ghana cedis and Total Ghana having 1.6 billion Ghana cedis. However, after that year, that is 2014, we are seeing a very high or appreciation in GOIL's revenue from 2015 through to 2018. That means GOIL has outperformed Total Ghana throughout the 5 years or the 4-year period from 2015 through to 2018, with revenue increasing from 1.5 in 2014 to 1.9 in 2015, 2 billion in 2016, 2.4 in 2017, and then 3 billion in 2018, as against Total Ghana's 1.6 in 2014, 1.7 in 2015, 1.6 in 2016, and in 2017 and 18, Total Ghana had a revenue of 1.8 and 2.4 billion Ghana cedis. So we are seeing a very appreciation in terms of GOIL's revenue generation as against Total Ghana's revenue generation, with 2016 being the year in which Total Ghana's revenue declined from 1.7 billion to 1.6 billion Ghana cedis. So this has been the revenue trend for Total and GOIL. Now let's look at their cost of sales. So we explained earlier on that the cost of sales is the main driver of the revenue. Okay, so the cost of sales is the expenditure or the direct expenses that they incur in generating the revenue. That is the direct labor, direct expense, and then the direct material cost and all that you can think of. That becomes part of the products and services that, or the products that the companies sell. So we are saying the cost of sales for GOIL and then the cost of sales for Total Ghana. So let's rename it as trend of cost of sales in Ghana cedis. Okay, so there we have it. Now let's clear this cut and then paste it in our blank sheet to do our analysis. So let's see how we established that the cost of sales has become a major factor or a major factor in generating the revenues that we have already established. However, we also saw that the cost of sales for the two companies have been too high, taking a large amount or huge amount of the company's revenue. So in 2014, we are saying that the cost of sales for GOIL stood at 1.4 billion Ghana cedis as against 1.5 billion Ghana cedis of Total. So you realize that the cost of sales for Total was far higher than that of GOIL by about 100 million Ghana cedis. Now, after 2014, we've seen that Total Ghana has taken the GOIL has taken the lead in terms of cost of sales amount from 1.4 to 1.8 in 2015, 1.8 in 2016, 2.3 in 2017, and in 2018 their cost of sales stood at 2.8 billion Ghana cedis. That is about twice the amount that they used to spend in 2014, with GOIL also spending close to that same amount from 1.5 billion in 2014 to 2.1 billion Ghana cedis in 2018. So this has been the cost of sales trend for the two companies. Alright, now let's look at the expenses. So the expenses here, you are looking at the indirect expenses for the two companies. That is the selling and distribution expenses. You can look at staff and then management expenses as well. So let's see how the two companies have been managing their expenses. In this case, we are looking at the indirect aspects of it. So we have for GOIL, expenses for GOIL, then we have expenses for Total Ghana. So Total Ghana is here. Okay, so let's rename the chart as trend of expenses in Ghana cedis. Okay, so trend of expenses in Ghana cedis is what we are seeing here for Total and GOIL. Let's cut our chart to a blank sheet and do our discussion. So for the past 5 years, this has been the companies or the two companies' performance or their total expenditure. Now in 2014, we are seeing 62 million Ghana cedis for GOIL, that is 62.9 million Ghana cedis in terms of expenses, as against Total's 81.8 million Ghana cedis. Now in 2018, we are seeing 157.5 million Ghana cedis in the expenses for Total, that is GOIL, and in 2018 we are seeing 150 million Ghana cedis in expenses for Total Ghana. Now we are saying that in 2017 the two companies were at their peak, to the extent that they spent 129 million Ghana cedis each. However, we can see that Total Ghana's total expenses or their expenses have been far lower than that of GOIL, with GOIL increasing their revenue from 62 million Ghana cedis to 80 million Ghana cedis to 117 million Ghana cedis to 129 million Ghana cedis, and in 2018 they are spending 157.5 million Ghana cedis, as against Total Ghana's 81 in 2014 to 101 in 2015, and then 107 million in 2016 to 129 million in 2017 and 150 million in 2018. So this has been the expenses trend for the two companies. Now let's look at the profit after tax, how the two companies have also fared in terms of maximizing profit to shareholders. Okay, so this has been their profit after tax for the past 5 years, from 2014 to 2018. So let's see. The series 1 represents EAT for GOIL, and then we have series 2 representing the EAT for Total Ghana. Alright, so there we have it. Now let's rename it as trend of EAT in Ghana cedis, that is the earnings after tax. Okay, so let's cut it to our blank sheet and see how the companies have fared, the two companies. So we go for this. Good. So let's see. So one would say that throughout the years, GOIL has been dominating in terms of revenue generation. Are they dominating in terms of profit after tax? Let's see what we have here. So in 2014, we are saying that GOIL had a revenue or net profit of 20 million as against Total Ghana's 30.9 million Ghana cedis. That is quite huge. 10 million Ghana cedis difference. In 2015, we witnessed the same thing. GOIL increased its revenue by just about 2 million Ghana cedis, whereas Total Ghana increased its revenue by 15 million Ghana cedis, from 30 to 45 million. And in 2018, we are seeing GOIL increasing its net profit by 54 million Ghana cedis as against Total Ghana's 50 million Ghana cedis. So from 2016 or 2017 and then 18, Total GOIL has been dominating in terms of profits or net profit to shareholders. Now let's see, there are some ratios that we are going to use to assess their performance. So we will look at some basic ratios that we have already looked at them. So we consider the book value per share. We've already established that. So we have book value per share for Total Ghana and then GOIL. So let's go for a chart. Okay, there we have it here. So let's showcase the data labels and then okay, so there we have it. So we have series 1 being the book value per share. We have series 2 being the book value per share for Total Ghana. Okay, so there we have it. Let's rename our chart as BVPS, that is the book value per share. BVPS. Okay, so just BVPS. So let's take it to our blank sheet and then do the discussion on it. So let's see. Like we said, the book value per share is a historical figure that represents the value of the firm. Historical in the sense that the total equity in the or of the company is just a reflection of the past figures that the company has been generating as against the market figures itself. That is why mostly you do the book value per share, then you do the market to book value per share to compare the two to see how the company is faring. Now from 2014 to 2018, we are seeing an appreciation in the book value per share for the two companies. However, we can tell that that of Total Ghana has been very, very impressive, from 1.3 pesos in 2014 to 1.84 pesos in 2018. That is comparing the two companies. Whereas GOIL had about 30 pesos in 2014, and in 2018 they had 0.89, that is 89 pesos. You can see that these figures are very low as against that of Total Ghana. Now the book value per share, we said the other time that it is mostly used as a benchmark to ensure or to compare it to the market price of the stock, to ensure that the market price of the stock does not fall below the book value per share. Once the book value per share is higher than the market price, then it means that investors do not consider the stock to be attractive enough, or it also means that the stock is underpriced, or it's also a good opportunity for takeovers to set in. That is, competitors can easily take over the company because the market does not see the company to be any attractive. So these are some of the implications of the book value per share. So mostly a high equity amount will translate into a high book value per share. Not always that too, because you also consider the number of shares of the company. Alright, so this has been the book value per share for the two companies. Now let's look at other ratios. So we've looked at the book value per share. Now let's look at the earnings per share. So earnings per share for Total, this is for GOIL. Then we have the earnings per share for Total. So let's insert our chart. Okay, so there we have it. So earnings per share for the two companies. So let's see. So we have earnings per share for GOIL, EPS, and then we have EPS for Total Ghana. So this is how much, if you are an investor, you are earning, or if you are a shareholder, you are going to earn out of the net profit of the company, EPS. So let's just use EPS. So let's see how the two companies have been able to provide value for shareholders' money throughout the 5 years that we have been reviewing. So the first line represents that of Total. From 2014 through to 2018, we are seeing earnings per share appreciating from 28 pesos through to 45 pesos in 2018, as against GOIL's 8 pesos in 2014 to 14 pesos in 2018. So in terms of earnings per share, we are saying that Total Ghana's earnings per share is far higher than that of GOIL. So let's look at other ratios as well. So we have looked at the earnings per share. Now let's look at the price earnings ratio. So how much are investors willing to pay for the company's earnings? That is the earnings per share that we are looking at. And can you tell, or we can also tell, whether or not the two companies are undervalued, or between these two companies, which one is undervalued or overvalued? Okay, so we have the PE ratio for Total. So let's insert our chart and see how these two companies' PE ratio has been, or have been throughout the years that we have been reviewing. So let's insert our, so we have series 1 being PE ratio for GOIL, and then we have series 2 being the PE ratio for Total Ghana. So let's take out the legend and then rename it as PE ratio. Okay, so let's cut it to our blank sheet and then do our analysis on the PE ratio. So like I said, how much investors are willing to pay for the company's earnings is what the PE ratio is all about. Now, if it is high, pundits or financial analysts consider it to be a stock that is overpriced or overvalued. If it is low, analysts consider it to be undervalued. Another aspect is that if it is high, then the company is known to be a growth company or a growth stock. And if it is low, it is sometimes known as value stock. Now, depending on how you are going to interpret it and depending on when you are going to buy the stock, that will tell you whether or not you are a value or a growth investor. Now let's look at the PE for 2014 through to 2018. We can see that GOIL's PE ratio has been very, very high as against that of Total Ghana, from 13.13 in 2014 to 16.66, with the highest being 26.8 in 2017. with the lowest being 2016, where their PE ratio stood at 12.23 Ghana cedis. Now, if you look at that of Total, it has been on the increase from 22.02 in 2014 to 5.79 in 2016 to 7.55 in 2018. So you realize that Total Ghana's PE ratio has been far lower than that of GOIL, if you look at the figures that we are seeing here. So if I'm not being tempted to say or to conclude, one will say that Total Ghana will be for value investors, whereas GOIL will be for growth investors. Okay, so I won't go too deep into that. Now let's look at the dividend yield for the two companies. So the dividend yield, as we explained, so how much are you going to enjoy out of the company's earnings, and then out of the company's dividend. So in this case, we don't have the earnings yield. We are going to focus on the dividend yield instead. So dividend yield for 2000 for GOIL and the dividend yield for total. Okay, so let's insert our chart and then good. So there we have it. So let's exhibit the labels and then rename the series. Series 1 will be the dividend yield for GOIL. Then we have dividend yield for total. So that is what we have here. Okay, so let's make it dividend. So we have dividend yield. Okay, so let's cut it. Let's cut it to our blank sheet and then do our discussion. Okay, so there we have it here. Okay, so we can see that between these two companies, Total Ghana over the years, that is a 5-year period that we've been reviewing, has had the highest dividend yield from 2.88 in 2014 to 3.92 in 2000, that is 2.88% to 3.92% in 2018, as against GOIL's 1.9 in 2014, that is 1.9% in 2014 to 1.83 in 2018. So this has been the dividend yield trend for the two companies. And like I said, how much in dividend are you going to receive if you are to invest a CD or two in the company as a shareholder? And that is exactly what we are seeing here. Okay, so now let's look at our last ratios in this case, which is going to be their share price trend, or the trend of their share price. So we will look at the trend of their share price, that is how much these two stocks are being traded on the market, or they were being traded, as these figures that we are seeing here are figures that are in the past. Okay, now I would want us to include that of 2019, that is a current year, July 2019, because as at now in July 2019, these are the prices that they are being traded. So let's see. So we have the first one being price per share for GOIL. So price per share for GOIL. Okay, so let's clear this. Price per share for GOIL. All right, okay, let's rename it again. So that will be the price per share for GOIL, and then we have the price per share for Total Ghana. Okay, then afterwards we'll look at the returns for the two companies. So we have market price. So market price, okay, in Ghana cedis. So let's see how the two companies shares, yes, have been trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Okay, so as we can see, from 2014 to 2018, we are seeing that GOIL's share price has been on the increase, though lower than, or far lower than, that of Total. It has been appreciating from 135 pesos in 2014 to 220 pesos in 2019. That is about 100% increase in its share price. Now if you look at that of Total Ghana, it has been on the decline. Okay, from 6 cedis 10%, 6 cedis 10 pesos to 4 cedis as at July 2019. So this has been the trend of their share price, with their lowest being 2016, where GOIL was trading around 1 cedi 10 pesos and Total Ghana was trading around 1 cedi 98 pesos. So this has been the share price for the two companies. Now let's look at the share returns. So if you had invested, or if you invest in these two companies, these are the returns that you are likely to get. That is the capital gains component, excluding the dividend Okay, so the capital gains component excluding the dividend that the companies paid. All right, so let's see how these two companies have also performed. In this case, it is solely the performance of the stock on the market, excluding the influence of the company's dividend, because you know that in our previous analysis, when we were explaining or when we were doing the calculations for the share returns, we had to add, or we added the dividend that the companies, or the two companies paid. But in this case, we are taking it out because we want to know how much returns that the company gave to its investors on the markets, influenced by just demand and supply. So we have share returns. Okay, so let's take it to our blank sheet and see how much investors have enjoyed. Okay, so let's change the design to good. So in 2014, we are saying that the year-on-year return for GOIL, for Total, stood at 20.55. So if you had bought the shares of Total Ghana from 2013 through to 2014, or at the beginning of 2014 and at the end, and you were able to hold it till the end of 2014, you were likely to get a return of 20.55%. Now, if you were that of a GOIL's investor or shareholder, your return could have been 17.78%. Now, in 2018, we are seeing a decline or a negative return of 3.68%. So if you were a shareholder of Total Ghana, your returns, that is a capital gains component of it, could have been negative 3.68%, and that of GOIL was 14.55%, with their highest being 2017, where Total Ghana gave out a return of 78.28%, and that of GOIL gave a return of 144.55% return. So this has been a brief comparison between these two companies. There are a lot of analysis that we have done here. As time goes on, they will be analyzed and posted on our page. So viewers, this has been the performance analysis between Total and GOIL. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't hesitate to comment or criticize. If you have any suggestions, you can just drop them. If you have any suggestions, you can just drop them. But like our page, share, and then subscribe so that we can propagate investments in Ghana. Thank you. This has been Prosper Apanye of Young Investors Network. See you very, very soon. Bye bye.